friends, and welcome to another episode of Chapters on Armstrong Neighborhood Channel. Chapters is a show that goes kind of behind the scenes to talk about authors and talk to them, authors, editors, publishers in places all over the country. We used to kind of keep it to the tri-state area, but now that we've got Zoom, we can go almost anywhere we want to. So tonight we're doing that. We are excited to have an outstanding panel of publishers with us tonight to talk about the current state of publishing, Appalachian literature, and how their organizations decide what to publish. First, we have Kat Pleska, wearing the little cat pin. She is the director of the nonprofit publisher called Mountain State Press, which started many years ago, 1978. They promote writing in Appalachia with an emphasis on West Virginia works. The press has published manuscripts varying in style and subject matter which hold appeal throughout Appalachia, the United States, and the world. Jeff Kallet is the marketing director of Ohio University Press. Founded in 1947, it is the largest scholarly press in the state of Ohio. It's a department of Ohio University that publishes under its own name and under the fiction imprint Swallow Press. This press publishes 50 books annually and has a back catalog of over 1,200 titles. Brooks Rexroat, he is the founder and co-editor of Summer Camp Publishing. It's a micro press specializing in brief but powerful prose and poetry, and he's based in Banner Elk, North Carolina. Welcome to all of you all. I know that's a real brief little synopsis of what you do, so if you need to add to it or alter anything I said, let me know about that, and maybe any of the new books that you've published. First of all, I want to talk just a little bit about people get books and they recognize that there are ways that somehow they got out in the public, but authors know that they can publish in at least 3 ways. And I want to talk just a brief minute about that. One can do self-publishing. One can do what's called vanity presses, which means you pay somebody to print your work. And then we have traditional publishing, which all 3 of you all do. So with all those ways to publish, why should people use a traditional publisher?
Well, I think that the advancement of self-publishing now has moved so much that it does make it easier for people to do their own publishing. But one thing that traditional publishers can do is help you with the marketing. If you're going to do self-publishing, unless you hire a publicist, you do it all on your own. Typically, established publishers, have connections and networks to help writers in some sense, whether it's the actual production of the book or marketing it and that sort of thing. So they can help you out with that. I don't know any publishers nowadays that has a huge budget to market. I mean, that is difficult. Now, Jeff with a university press may have a little more, but my memoir was published by West Virginia University Press. And I can tell you there wasn't a whole lot of money when it came to marketing. Distribution is the key thing, I think. And as a small little independent press, it's difficult for me to deal with something like, Chicago, who does a lot of distribution, or Ingram or something like that, because you have to send in so many books and spend so much money up front in order for them to get them in their system and to get them across United States or the world or something like that. So there are still some, to me, I think, some advantages to go with a traditional press. And also they usually have some excellent editors on board that can edit your work and make it stronger. And I know there's a push now for people who want to self-publish to hire, top-notch editors, and that's an excellent advice. I can't recommend that more. So a publisher will assume that cost rather than the self-published author.
Jeff, do you find that getting those connections that Kat spoke about with distribution is one of the things that makes it more appealing to an author?
Yeah, I don't know how much authors know about distribution. as a topic. I would say that Kat kind of nailed all the things that were on my mind as far as, what a publisher can offer, from editorial to marketing, but then also distribution. And Ohio University Press has relationships with the whole world. We can, an author publishes with us, they can sell their book in India, they can sell their book in South Africa, they can sell their book in Singapore, as well as Canada and independent bookstores. We have relationships, with wholesalers and bookstores. We have sales reps that go out. I think that some people who are really DIY and want their hands on the whole process can do a really good job with self-publishing. And I've seen some people who do excellent jobs. The marketing and the design of the covers, it really looks fabulous. But some people just like to write, and do their work, and then turn that over to someone else to sort of be the professional or to specialize in getting that work out to the world. And I think that's, to me, what publishers really do best. It allows you to really focus on your work, and then leave the other stuff to the publisher. And then you go back to your research and hopefully do some interviews with media.
Yeah. So let them do the professional stuff. Brooks, would you agree with both of those?
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly agree with everything that's been said. I think there are definitely circumstances where self-publishing is a great option. It really just kind of depends on your goals. If you've written something and you want your friends and family to have access to it, go for it. In terms of, if you want to find that broader audience, I think the biggest thing that we try to really emphasize, and we're the baby of the group. We're not even a year old yet. But what we really try to emphasize is that our authors are joining a team. Our authors take care of each other. They push each other's work. They make connections with each other. They, right now we're not going and doing physical readings together, but they're collaborating and working together on virtual readings and store visits and things like that. So you get that team, not only the actual publishers, but in a lot of instances, the team of other authors that are associated with that press to kind of come alongside you in the process. And we're really intentional on trying to build that community within our group. And I think the other thing is it's kind of been danced around a little and not spoken directly, but we're not going to charge you, right? You're going to get a check, and it might not be a huge check, but you're going to get a check, right? As opposed to, you making all those financial outlays from the beginning.
We're talking about the niche that your publishing company holds.
All right. So our niche at Summer Camp Publishing is we deal primarily in brief works. So we publish novellas, short story collections, collections of microfiction, and poetry collections that are on the brief side. So we do have one kind of standard sized 6x9 book that came out with us, and that was something we just really believed in the subject matter and the authors behind it. So we made a little bit of an exception, but the majority of our books are smaller. They're, well, that didn't work. They're 4x6 inch pocket-sized books, ranging from about 30 up to about 100, 120 pages. And so we focus on the brief. We do publish across genres, poetry, prose, hybrid prose works that are combinations of fiction and nonfiction. And we've got some exciting things coming up, I think.
Good, thank you. Jeff?
So Ohio University Press, we are, I think in general, university presses have a mission of disseminating scholarly research. And for us, some of the big areas that we do in academic works, probably we're best known for African studies. We're one of the top publishers in the world, actually, here in Athens, Ohio, for African studies. But we publish Victorian studies and philosophy, and mainly in the humanities is what we do. for that type of work. We also have a Polish and Polish American series. So that's kind of like the academic side. And that really is, I think, a core mission for what we do. A lot of commercial publishers are just simply not going to be interested in publishing stuff that's kind of a limited audience, but it's still important. And these are things that get cited in all sorts of studies. And so it's good work, but it's just not something that you're going to give to your relative at Christmas time. But we do also publish regional books, because part of our mission is to sort of mirror or reflect the region where we exist. And we're in Athens, Southeast Ohio. So we do books about Ohio history. We do pretty photo books about Ohio and the Midwest. And of course, another big area for us is Appalachian studies. And there we have kind of like two tracks. Part of the Appalachian studies is that academic area where we're publishing really kind of research into academic studies into the area. But we also do a lot of creative publishing, poetry, and a lot of fiction these days. Probably most of the fiction that we publish, which is a little bit new for us as University Press, is Appalachian.
Swallow Press? Is that with the imprint Swallow Press?
So we also have this imprint Swallow Press, and that has a long history, which I probably shouldn't get into, but it was another publisher that was founded, I think, in the 1950s by a man named Alan Swallow in Denver, Colorado. At one point, Ohio University Press kind of distributed Swallow Press's books, but they were still independent. But since I've been at the press, we actually acquired it. And so it's now one of our imprints. But that press, it's really interesting. They publish an author named Anis Nin, who a lot of people know, international stature author with a huge backlist for us. And there's a guy named Frank Waters, who's a writer of the Southwest United States. And that Swallow Press also brought us all these, we have a lot of books about the American West, which is kind of unique for where we are, And I guess, we have a poetry prize, an annual poetry prize. So we always are publishing poetry. I'd say that kind of covers it. We have this range between what I would call general interest, popular reading material, and then stuff that is really more for scholarly research.
Thank you. Kat, how about you?
Well, when the Mountain State Press was founded as a nonprofit back in 1978, it was run by the character Jim Comstock, and we in West Virginia know who he is. He was quite a character, and he started the press actually to publish or republish Davis Grubb's work, in particular Night of the Hunter. And he raised $40,000 in 1978 terms to publish Davis Grubb's book, because Davis Grubb had a lot of substance abuse problems and had been going down, and he wanted to help Davis, who's a West Virginia native, revitalize. And so he is, to my knowledge, he did not reprint Night of the Hunter, but he did reprint from Scribner, which I have the letter that he got permission to do this, A Tree Full of Stars. So that was how he started out. And he started out in the press taking in memberships. Since then, the bylaws have been changed, so we're not forced to have solicit membership. But since then, it's been fairly eclectic over the last 42, going on 43 years. It's been some history, a few memoirs. There might be some books like about some of the musicians that were in West Virginia, the bluegrass and that sort of thing. There's one book that was published in 1994 called House Call in the Hills, was written by Dr. J. Banks, who passed away about 4 years ago at 94. But what he wrote, it was a memoir about going up into the hills and hollers of West Virginia in the 1930s and 40s to doctor. And he would accept as payment chickens or pigs or something like that. You know, it was, but I'll tell you why that book is still selling. It's really excellently written. It's a small little book, but it's often purchased by university medical departments, you know, to use in some of their classes. So they know what doctoring used to be in the earlier part of the 20th century. And there's been poetry done. In fact, they ran a poetry contest back in 1984, and the #1 winner poem was Jennifer Garner's.
Wow.
Yeah, I think she was 11 at the time or something like that. And I still have a few copies of that. But there's been things like Mom and Ramps, a cookbook. More recently, since I've taken over the press, there's been short story collections. I've been at this now almost 8 years. By the way, I'm a volunteer. I don't get paid. This is a nonprofit. I don't, you know, I do all this stuff with not even gas money. And I've been doing some things like some more short story collections,
Essay
anthologies. Yes, anthologies. I've actually edited 2 anthologies for the press. Voices on Unity, Coming Together and Falling Apart. That was spurred by, in 2016, by the uproar that was just beginning in the nation dividing, and I solicited essays for that. And then the most recent one in 2019 is Fearless: Women's Journeys Towards Self-Empowerment, which was spurred on by the Me Too movement. Most recently, I published a memoir and 2 collections of short stories. The memoir is Kathy Manley's Don't Tell 'Em You're Cold, a memoir of poverty and resilience. And that book is outselling just about anything. And also, I'm very proud to say that the press has published Richard Cobb and Carter Seaton's memoir, We Were Legends in Our Own Mind, which is a terrific book. And I love the looks of it. I really do. The graphic artist that we hired, it made it look like a Peter Max painting on the front of it. It was really, really terrific because it is kind of a period piece of, you know, what he's talking about in the book. It's memoir. So it's kind of a little bit all over the place. I don't do a whole lot of poetry because I'm not networked into areas where I can promote poetry that much, and it takes a lot of time and effort to do that. It's very much worthwhile, but I just me, I don't have the wherewithal to do that. So
okay, tell me, all 3 of you all, tell me what's the percentage between the proposals you get and the number of books you can actually put out. I think listeners and people who read books would be interested to know, you know, how do you, what's the ratio of selection to what's sent in to you?
Well, I'll say first because it's short and sweet. I haven't been taking any manuscripts in the last year or so. You know, I had to slow down in order to do my backlog and get that done. And I took on Carter's and Richard's fairly recently, which when an opportunity like that comes up, you know, you jump on it. But I would say the ratio when I was taking manuscripts was probably, if I got 10, I might do 1, something like that.
How about you, Jeff?
So before this call, I talked to we have an acquisitions editor right now, just 1. And I asked him about this question. He says that, I mean, this is kind of framing it negatively, but it's like the same percentage as Kat. He says he rejects 95% of everything that comes in. And we publish about 40 books a year is where we're at now.
Wow.
2 a year. 2. All I have funds for, but that's fine. You know, I do what I can.
Yeah. Brooks?
Yeah, we're gonna do 12 books this year, and we're looking at we're probably the most generous right now. We're looking at about 20%, and part of that is because we're new. We're not getting the volume of submissions just yet as people find out through who we are. And then we also we solicited a handful of our first titles just to make sure, and first of all, as we got our feet under us, that we knew who we were working with, and that we kind of had some partners that were going to be patient with us as we figured things out for our first couple titles.
Okay, thanks. What do you all feel about where Appalachian literature fits in the giant publishing world? Do you think we're considered a stepchild in some circles? I know we certainly are not the golden child for New York publishers, but where do you feel the Appalachian literature fits? Are we a stepchild, do you think?
I don't think we're as much anymore. When the world opened up with being able to market and sell online and be available to everybody around the world who wants to tune into something like that, I think Appalachian works have been discovered, sort of, if you want to think of it that way. So I don't find that there's as much negativity as there used to be. I've heard some horror stories in the past, and I am one of those horror stories when I was trying to get my memoir published. I won't go into that. But I think it's because books are now available so easily that maybe it's leveled the playing field a little bit. And I do see Appalachian authors producing more and more and more. And it's a terrific thing.
Good.
As I used to say, well, gee, number one, I didn't know you could write, literally, you could read and write. And number two, when my manuscript was turned down one time with Morrow brothers, I think, the part of HarperCollins, the bean counters, the accountant said to the editor who wanted my book, said, she's from West Virginia, Appalachia. No, they count on the sales being largest from where you are from. And their statistics showed that reading just wasn't something that was done very much based on book sales in Appalachia. But this was in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's after that it changed some.
I just read a statistic that said that 74% of the United States adults purchased at least one book in the past year, and that 98% said they purchased those books for pleasure, spending about $100 annually on books. So that's encouraging.
Yeah.
And I certainly fall into that category and above, I'm sure.
Oh, I wish I could hold it down to $100 a year.
Yeah, I don't think I could ever do that. Jeff, do you feel like, I know you all have a lot of Appalachian literature, even though it's maybe Northern Appalachia, Northern Ohio sort of thing. Do you feel like the regional focus is considered a stepchild in some ways still?
That's a good question. I don't even know if I'm the guy to give that answer. As I was thinking about it, I thought about actually we publish a mystery series, and the author is based in Columbus, Ohio. And one of the things that I've thought about is every story has a place, no matter where it is. It could be in New Orleans, it could be in Los Angeles, Seattle, it could be in Charleston, West Virginia. And one of the toughest things is convincing people that this book is going to be of interest to anyone, no matter where you are. And a lot of it has to do with talent and the voice and the writing and all this stuff. And in that regard, I don't want to be overly optimistic here, Carter, but I do think that anyone, anywhere, if they are talented, and that talent can come from anywhere at this point in time, right? Mm-hmm. I think that, there's a certain amount of luck, but I do think that it doesn't matter where a person is from, where a writer is from. But I'm going to pull back a little bit and agree with Kat that certainly from my perspective, as you know, I do a lot of marketing for Ohio University Press books and authors. And, you know, one of the easiest things to do is to focus on where that author lives and to hit their hometown and all those little connections that you can make because of place, because of where a person is from. No doubt that is important. And probably it's more important for a beginning author, you know, someone who's just getting known, to kind of establish roots in your region. But one of the puzzling things to me has always been, going back to this Columbus mystery, how do you convince people who are hundreds of miles away in a totally different region to give this a try? And that is a real challenge, but it happens all the time. We all read books that take place in other countries and other regions of the country. And what is it about that makes us want to read it? It's the writing itself. And so I think that good writing transcends place, personally. So I really don't know about the stepchild thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been following AppleNet for years now, and I know there are long, serious and real debates about just how Appalachia is portrayed in the larger society. You know, but I do feel that as far as writing goes, there are lots of examples of people who can make that leap. Things have to come together nicely, but it happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you find that to be the case with some of the things you're working on, Brooks? Or do you, I know you've got a variety of people that you've already published and are publishing. They're all over the place. I mean, the guys who wrote Wounds are certainly not Appalachian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those guys are from Michigan. Well, Rajel's in Tennessee now, but grew up in Michigan. But the bulk of our writers are Appalachian or Appalachian connected. And I'll tell you, I'm selling as many books in New York, California, and England as I am in West Virginia and Kentucky, which are those writers' hometowns. So there's all sorts of ways that writers can have that connection, and that hometown digitally gets a lot bigger sometimes. One of the reasons we got started that might take a little unique spin on this discussion is that, you know, during my time teaching at Marshall and interacting with academic writers in West Virginia, and then, you know, as a student in Kentucky, there are so many amazing Appalachian authors who, for whatever reason, are not interested in engaging the publishing process. You know, this is something that I've written. It's for myself. It's for a handful of other folks. And that's just not a thing that some people want to engage. And that's certainly their choice. One of the things we wanted to do was be a very welcoming, maybe first stop to bring some of those really important and strong and polished and valuable voices out of that personal writing and into a more public space, so that you know, those people who are buying books from England and New York and California can read that diversity of stories coming from this region.
Mm-hmm. Good. How do you feel the future of publishing is at this time? Do you think regional publishers are sort of rising to the top, or do you think that we're still terribly dominated by the big six and you know, just publishing in general? I know I read a statistic not very long ago that said that while we had that big bubble where people were reading ebooks and listening to books, they've now gone back to the print version, which I confess that I did the same thing. I was doing ebooks, and then I switched back to paper to, you know, hold it in my hand kind of books. How do you all feel about the future of publishing? Are you enthused about it? Do you think it's a rocky road? Tell us how you feel.
I think it's positive, Carter. I think that the big ones in New York will always dominate as long as they exist, and that's in question in the near future, I think, with the big commercial books and the big commercial authors. It's kind of like music. in the same sense. I see that parallel. You know, in the music world, you've got the big music publishers that put on all the commercial music that you hear on the radio, Lady Gaga and all the rest. But then you've got all the indie music that has risen because the younger, I hear it from my students. And by the way, Brooks, I teach at Marshall. And I hear them say, we don't want to listen to the commercial music. It might be just fine. Like Lady Gaga's got a fabulous voice, but I want to hear the really quirky and unusual and different independents making music. And I think that's what's happening in the publishing world as well. So I see smaller regional independent presses staying fairly strong. It always depends on our economy. Obviously, sales have been down for me during the pandemic, but they didn't stop. They didn't die. And I could have done more to produce, you know, to promote. But because of the pandemic and, you know, difficulties getting your authors out there, you know, it slowed down for everybody. But I really think very positively about rising independent presses. Yeah. It may come to a point where there's too many and the field gets too crowded, and some of the stronger ones may stay and some of the other ones may merge in or disappear. That's okay. You know, that's our country. That's what happens here on a good day.
Brooks, you're brand new. You feeling optimistic about it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, to kind of echo that sentiment about, I think the variety that's available in independent publishing. I was at the Sewanee Writers Conference 2 years ago, and they did a big publishing panel and had people in from all the, you know, the major presses that probably brought in private jets from New York and, you know, whatever. And they got up there and told us about how committed they were to diversity of voices and how this is a big, you know, future undertaking for them and how committed they are. And everybody in the room's like, oh yeah, good. And then they, you know, they set out the table in front of them with their next 2 years worth of titles, and it's a bunch of middle-aged straight white guys with 9 other books out, and we all just looked at them like, are you serious? So as long as they're hanging out like tripping over themselves on that kind of stuff, I think there's space for smaller publishing houses to be bold and to be enthusiastic and to, you know, take that indie aesthetic and, you know, elevate voices and make a bigger, bolder, more exciting scene. And, you know, that's what we're trying to do. And I know the other 2 presses representing it here are doing a great job with that too. And so I'm excited to be part of it, and we're having fun. I'm never going to make my full living on this, most likely. So we're having fun. We're publishing people that we love, and they're, you know, they're having a good time. They're finding new readers, and that's, you know, as long as that keeps happening, I'm thrilled.
Well, you're right there with most authors. I had Terry Kay was a friend of mine. I don't know if you all know who Terry is, but he was a Southern writer who just died about 2 weeks ago. He wrote To Dance with the White Dog. And he said to me one time that there were only about 300 authors in the country that made their entire living with their work. And he couldn't even count himself anymore because he was drawing Social Security. But that's a pretty small number when you think about all the books that are out there. So I salute all 3 of you all for helping to bring new voices and regional voices to the forefront to let us all have the opportunity to read their good works. So thank you all so much for being with us today. I hope our audience now has a better appreciation of what it takes to get their favorite books to them. And we want to give a shout out to all the local bookstores where you can pick up books of any of these publishers. If you're an online book shopper, consider using bookshop.org. A portion of their sales supports those local bookstores. And you can find other recent author and editor and publisher interviews archived for you on our chapter's Facebook page in case you missed 1 or 2. And if you tune back in next time, we'll have new people to talk to, and you all have a great day, and we'll see you again. Stay safe, stay well. Bye-bye.
Connect with Chapters through email. Write to lp4@zoominternet.net. Chapters has a Facebook page at Armstrong Chapters. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. All Chapters episodes are available on YouTube. Visit the Armstrong Neighborhood channel on YouTube and look for a playlist of all the Chapters programs.